The test seemed to be taking forever. Draken never realized that it would take this long. Thinking of what to do, he remembered he had to go clean the attic for a little bit. The attic was on the very top floor of their lair. No, DA, it had been pulled down staircase. He hadn't been up there in a while. Every time they moved, Draken would always bring along with Shigo all their belonging them, if they had the time. Looking around the dusty attic, it reminded him of the storage deck on the large cruise ship, where everyone would put their large cars and or boxes carried things inside while they were on top. Draken had walked in and looked up. He squealed as a large black hair spider crawled onto his hair. God, I hate spiders, he thought, as she flicked the spider from his head and in the wall gently. Looking around, he spotted a long brown broomstick with a golden straw on the bottom. Wiping it out of gray cobwebs and throwing them out the window, he found his belonging things and that he, when he was a child and so forth, started to go through them. Draken looked down at the large crate and he blew away the dust and rubbed his hand all over it. It gave the name Drew Fyodor Lipsky across it, and Draken just rolled his eyes, opening the box and coughing all the dust. He stared down at all the things he had. First, he came up on his high school yearbook. Wow, I wonder if I still remember what I still look like, Draken said out loud, as he sat down on his knees and opened the book. The first few pages were totally blank until he came upon the page 5. Artist, Crownful High School, it read beneath it, and it was a drawn picture of a wizard with a short black magic wand that had blue, red, and green magic sparks coming out of the end. Draken smiled, remembering the school mascot. Flipping through the pages quickly, he came across his sophomore year. His nerves were tense as he scanned the pages until he found his page, turning white as he stared down at the small, skinny boy. He had black wavy hair and thin black glasses. He wore his evil school uniform with a white tank top and a dark blue coat and tie, and he had blue dark pants. Next to the picture was info of him in high school, of what he did. Sophomore year, best year in class. Science sophomore year, best robots made in robotics sophomore year. Band, piano sophomore year. Most likely seen, library, science lab, robotics lab. Favorite quote, "You think you are all that, but you're not." Best friends, none. Girlfriends, none. The list just went on, and Draken just sighed as he closed his eyes. He was the best student in his class while taking science, but he always built the best and the cleverest robots in the class and outsmarted everyone. The bullying stopped when he reached his first year of high school, which was much better. During his grade school years, he was depressed from all the beatings, out from being at home where he liked the most. Opening his eyes, he put on his high school yearbook next to him and got back on his knees and looked through the box. He came across an old pictures of him from when he was in college, and one when he was with his friends, Professor Chen and Dr. Possible and Professor Romish. They were the only good friends in college until they humiliated him to the point where he went crazy. That just didn't drive him crazy. It was everything else that went on in his life too. Minutes had passed on his watch, and he sort of looked at the things that were owned when he was young. Upon coming something he loved, he pulled out a small little brown teddy bear. It had two black button eyes and a scar under his little left eye. It was a duplicate of Draken, except Dr. Draken wasn't a teddy bear. He held the little bear close as he closed his eyes. He was feeling so tired all of a sudden. Draken started to doze off as a huge pile of heavy books from above him hit him down and trampled him. Poor Draken was knocked out. He couldn't see a thing, holding his little fuzzy brown teddy bear as he drifted off to sleep. Draken's mother looked down over her baby boy, who was giggling joyfully when she tickled his tummy. He lied in his crib. "Who's my favorite baby boy?" she said, laughing from the watching her son smile. It was a week or two after the incident with the rattlesnake, and things were going well. The sun was starting to set, and his mother went around the house and turned on some lights. Greg wasn't home yet. but hopefully he would be home soon from his so-called work. Abigail flickered on the fireplace downstairs and looked out the window as her husband drove the leafy driveway. Coming through the door, Abby tried to greet him, but he pushed her away. "What was that for?" she asked, getting annoyed by his firm push in his chest. "I just wanted to say hi. Are you in a bad mood or something, Greg?" she asked, folding her arms. Greg didn't look good. He looked drunk. Greg came home before being mugged and beat up one night. He scared Abby to death. That was when she was pregnant with Draken. It was months, though, before he was to be born, though. He had bad hiccup day. Why the fuck do you care? There, why is the baby crying? Tell him to shut up, Greg said, looking around in a dizzy way. He was drunk and Abby was scared to death. He was just a baby, Greg. He can't help it if he cries all the time. Why don't you sit down and I'll make you some dinner, huh? She said nervously, trying to get him to sit down at the kitchen table. No, I don't want dinner, he screamed with all that. He swung his arms and hit the poor helpless Abby in the face. She screamed in horror as she fell to the ground. Craig's eyes were red crystal and he looked like he was going to kill someone. I'm going to shut that baby up if it's the last thing I ever fucking do, he roared as he clenched his fist and then thumped upstairs. No! Abby screamed. She could see it in Greg's eyes, and she was going to silence little Drew for the rest of his life. Hurrying up the stairs towards the baby who was crying because he was hungry. His dad stared down over him, looking up at his dad, and smiled and giggled. Abby, who was in much pain, stumbled over to the kitchen and took a big metal pan off the wall. Limping upstairs because she twisted her ankle, she raised the metal pan above Greg's head. Greg had his fist clenched in the air. He was going to kill little Draken, who was just hungry. Throwing the pan down quickly, hard on top of his head, he fainted and fell to the ground. Abby then quickly grabbed her helpless baby boy and held him close. Oh, thank God you're all right, she whispered, rubbing his soft little head. Looking around, Drew smiled, not having a clue what was going on. After making sure her son was all right, she laid him back in his crib. Limping over to Craig, who was out like a light, she pulled him from under his arms to the bedroom. There was a big chair, and she tied him into it, and she sat up. She tied him in it pretty good so he wouldn't get lost. This was the first time he had gotten drunk, but this time he went too far and almost killed his 3-month son. We'll wake up soon and realize what I did this to him, Abby said, shutting the door. She picked up Draken, who was suckling on his binky very quickly. She took him downstairs and fed him some dinner, shaking all over from what just happened. Abby looked at Drew after his dinner from pouch, and of course out to the barn where to feed the horses. They owned a beautiful stable. It was painted with the dark color blue and white. The sun was setting and the horses were hungry. Abby's favorite, Ginger, who was the color of ginger, was kicking her heels on the barn door when she saw Abby with the baby. "I'm coming, Jean. Don't worry," Abby said, walking in and picking up the huge pitchfork, stabbing it in a large pile of golden hay, and she threw over Ginger's barn door, and she ate peacefully. After feeding all the other horses, she had realized that little Drew had fallen asleep in her pouch. Good, he is finally asleep, she thought as she headed home. Draken was sitting up slowly and looking around. He was being awoken by the cold, slimy tongue. Ew, Draken said, sitting up, looking at his spotted Komodo puddles, wagging his little pink tail and barking wildly. Hey, buddy, didn't see you. Wait, where am I? Draken asked himself, as he looked around and put his hand on his head where he felt sore from the fall of books. Then he remembered he was still up in the attic looking at his old things. After cleaning up his stuff, he walked down the stairs and went back to check on the test. It was still spinning wildly and it wasn't done. He was getting annoyed and had been a half an hour since he had put the red blood in. He decided to his new plan to take over the world. Shigo, on the other hand, was shopping. Her day was going all right, but later she would see a sign she would not recognize until a little later in life. Walking up and down the busy streets while trying not to be so villainy, Shigo looked in and out of glass windows on the shops. The sun was starting to be covered by the great clouds, but Shigo didn't care. She walked by the cute little baby store called Rattles and Ribbons. Everything in the shop was for babies. There were light brown crib in the window, little stuffed with baby colorful blankets and stuffed animals, getting goosebumps as she put her hand on her lower stomach and rubbed it. God, I sure do want to be a mother, she thought, as she looked at the different things on display. Then, making Shigo literally jump out of her skin, she felt her little green and black cell phone vibrate. She looked at the caller ID and was thrilled by the name Draken. Hey, did you find out the news? Shigo asked quickly on the phone. Hey, Shigo, as a matter of fact, I did. Honey, you're going to have a baby, Draken said happily. I am? Shigo almost screamed at the stone walk sides. Yes, you are, Draken said with joy. Oh, Drew, this is one of the happiest days of my life, Shigo said, twirling around in circles, laughing as she did this. Same here, Draken said, in a state of happy shock. So, when did the test results come in? Well, they seem to be taking forever, but they just showed up a few moments ago. Oh, this is awesome. What kind of child do you think we'll have? Draken said, running his fingers through his spiky black hair. Wow, oh geez, I don't know. A little girl would be nice. And I want a boy too. How about you? Any kind is fine with me. Having you start a family is just so wonderful, Shigo. How is your shopping going? He asked. Shigo laughed. Not going so well. I usually spend all the money, but I guess I'm just a little worried about the tests. But now I know I'm thrilled, Shigo said, starting to walk back down the street and passing people. Hey, I have to go, but I'll be home soon. Is that all right? Shigo asked, still very excited. Yeah, that's fine. Enjoy yourself. I'll be here when you get back. Bye. And with that, he hung up the phone and danced around the room and ran off to tell the henchman the good news. After an hour of shopping, Shigo found some new clothes and got a bite to eat at Sandy's Cookie Palace. And she had bought a large chocolate chip cookie. Sitting at the window upon looking out the streets of Middleton, everything was so peaceful and wonderful. Enjoying her cookie, she was setting her bags down, and she looked out again. Her diamond green eyes dashed around and then stopped at the magnet on a child. Standing across the street stood a child. The girl was dirty in her hand and had whitish blonde hair. Her face was pale and torn, as if she had no soul to go with it. Her eyes were dark brown and her eyelids were droopy. Her ears were low and her blonde hair was soaking wet. For a top, she wore a baggy, dark coral-colored sweat jacket, and for her pants, she wore cargo pants with the dark black. Reaching out of her left, and she stumbled forward towards the street, literally jumping out of her seat with the large cookie stuffed in her mouth. Shigo forgot her things and stumbled aside quickly. She ran to the curb and yelled, "Stop! A car will hit you!" Shigo said, but the little girl just kept coming closer. "Stop!" Shigo yelled, as a large bus was rushing down the streets. A worried look came upon the little girl's lifeless face. She spoke with everything around. Shigo stopped moving ever so slowly. "Shigo," the young child whispered. "He's coming back from the pits of hell. You're not safe. Don't let the child with the black and blue flame tattoo come in your life. He is coming back, Shigo. He is coming back." And with that, Shigo blinked quickly, and all the busy noise from the people in the streets came back. Opening her eyes, she looked around and didn't see the young girl everywhere. What in the world just happened to me? Shigo thought as she looked around. I have so many things on my mind. She thought as she walked back to the cookie shop and got her things and left, slowly passing to the people who hitting her shoulders like she was a ghost. Some gave nasty remarks, but she didn't care. The poor helpless young girl was lost. Why did she say Shigo he is coming? Who is coming? And when will I meet a girl with black and blue flame tattoo? Wake up, Shigo. Come back to life. Hello? Anybody home? Her mind told her as she quickly ran in her head and came back to life. Realized it was around 3 p.m. and she had done a lot of shopping throughout the day. The news of her baby really coming worrying her out. Besides, she was pregnant and she wasn't sure if it would be a good idea to walk on these hard streets. So Shigo got into a cab and headed home to tell Draken what had just happened. Sitting in the hard cab seat, Shigo didn't feel so good. Looking out in the dirty glass windows of the golden cab, she sighed. Shigo never really liked having real friends in her life. Always a child people would pick on her. But her brother Hugo would always be there to pull her chin up and tell her not to worry. Hugo would always tell Shigo that she would someday find a person that would take care of her and keep her safe. Even if they were right before her very eyes, she didn't even notice. The cab smelled, and it smelled like dirty old socks. Shigo pinched her nose and quickly cracked open the glass window a bit to get some fresh air. Gasping for fresh air, the driver started to ask if she was okay, looking at him as if she had free eyes. She then noticed that he was Spanish and could not understand him. "Sir, I'm fine, thank you," Shigo said, ever so slightly smiling, no matter how bad it hurt. Passing the stores and business offices, something caught her eye and her tongue went dry. Looking out the window, she realized she was in Ghost City. Quickly, her cab's small car stopped at the red light and dashed around until they were locked extremely tall building in the middle of the lake. It was a gray slender and was just sitting on the island. Only way to get her would have to be on a boat. A lurk of excitement passed through her as she saw her home. You know what? I think I'll just get out here," Shigo said, giving the Spanish man some money and then getting out of the golden cab. Knowing where she was going, Shigo walked down the street and got in a wooden boat and paddled her way and smiled. Shigo had never seen her brother since the wedding, which was not too long ago. Stopping and realizing what she was doing, shrugged her shoulders and kept paddling. She never really wanted to be near or with her brothers again, ever since she went to life and crime. But for some odd reason, she knew that she had to see them and tell them how things had been going on. Making her way up the mountain, she was nervous. She put a hand on the red hand scanner and read her name. 2 long metal doors opened up as she walked her in. Shigo was so nervous that she hadn't been there since she was 17, was the day she left Team Go, never wanted to come back. Looking around, peering her head, and the wavy, dark black hair fell in front of her shoulders. "Boy, things have changed around here," Shigo thought as she looked around. Setting her things down on the ground, she called out to her brother's names, getting no assurance, and she went upstairs to her old room. Shigo didn't know why she was totally invading her brother's home, until it had been that she had lived here to find out it was her home as well. Coming in front of the wind door had a light green glass door. Shigo looked at the sign, which nailed in front, "Shigo's room. Stay out, otherwise you'll be fired by my lasers," it read. Shigo launched as the door opened, and she laughed. And with that, she looked around the place in which she hadn't been in 8 years. "Oh me God," Shigo said, whispered as she went into her old bedroom. Obviously, no one has ever been in this bedroom since she left. The door was tight, but she managed to open it. Looking around, Shigo saw all of the memories as a child. She and her mother and brothers had came to live in a Thunder Go City and Go Tower. They had got their powers that it was after their father was shot. Their dust was everywhere, and even her bed looked old. She looked to her right and saw a large bookcase of old books she once read and looked at as a child. Next to the bookcase, she spotted a cherry wood desk with piles of papers and Mac computer. Shiga would never let anyone in near her computer. It was the ultimate prize when she was old enough to have one. It was her birthday present from her father. The year he died, the computer desk was full of blank black and green mirror hanging on the wall. Smiling and looking around, Shigo wrapped her body in her arms and sat on her bed, remembering when she would give her friends a sleepover at parties. Her bed was just old and dusty like the rest of her room. Shigo walked over to the window and fluttered the curtains, surprising herself with seeing such a very good view she had. Shigo looked out and saw the crystal clear ocean. "Gosh, I miss this life," she muttered, as she heard voices coming from downstairs. Quickly running to the door she forgot had left open downstairs. "I hope Avarius will stay in jail this time," yelled a voice that made Shigo smile when she heard it. Down below stood a man with muscular body. He had dark blue hair and wore the same kind of jumpsuit as her, but instead it was black and blue, not green and black. "Yeah, well, if he gets out again, I'll be his prison guard," another voice spoke of the man with black and purple outfit. Migo, Shigo whispered as she looked down at her brother. It was only a year younger than she was. He had dark purple hair and light skin. He also had a long face, but it was sweet. I'm tired. Me too, said the two little voices coming from behind Migo. They were Shigo's twin brothers, Wigo 1 and Wigo 2. They wore the same jumpsuit but had red, dark hair, and the colors they wore were red and black. Well, you guys had a long day, but wait a second. Who are those? Hugo said, and he pointed at the sacks behind and for some of the shopping bags. They, Shigo said, surprising everyone, belong to me, she said, smiling, casually walking down and hugging to greet them. Shigo! The twins screamed with all of a sudden, and they got their strength back and walked over to hug their sister. Hi, guys, she said, laughing as she hugged them back. Hi, Shigo, how are you? What are you doing here? Migo asked, coming over to greet his sister. Fine, I just dropped by to see you guys. A lot of things have been happening lately, Shigo told him as she hugged Hugo, and then sat in her light green chair and rested her feet on the ground circle that they would plan on their plans on defeating villains many years ago. Well, it's good to have you here. How's your husband doing? Hugo asked. Oh, Draken? He's fine. Just fine. It's weird. I've been with him for so long, it's different to say he's my husband, she said, thinking out loud. Oh, Mugo said, not paying attention. Yeah, Shigo said, annoyed. How have you guys been? Shigo asked. Good. We just battling Avarius, the twins said, giving each other a high five. He's still on the loose? Asked Shigo. Yep, he said, rubbing his eyes. Shigo and her brothers talked for a while, until Shigo told them what had happened before she and Draken got married, and the story of what happened with Dementor. And now he is dead, and he isn't coming back, Shigo said, finishing her story. Her whole family was speechless when she was finished telling the story. So Draken came back from the dead? Wigo 2 asked. Yeah, practically, she responded, resting her head on her shoulder. Cool, both Wigo 1 and 2 said at the same time. Well, I have saved the best for last, she said, smiling at them. What is it? Migo asked. Well, you're all going to be uncles because I'm having a baby, Shigo said, smiling, blushing at the same time. Higo jumped out of his seat and a wide smile came upon his face. Shigo, that's wonderful, he said, rushing over to her and hugging her tightly. Cool, we won't be the babies anymore, the twins said, giving each other high fives. Migo, on the other hand, was totally fine. Sis, wow, that's great, he said, slowly getting up and out of his chair and walking over to her. I know, I'm so excited, but I guess I won't be doing any more fight criming or kung fuing till the baby's born, Shigo said, but she didn't mind. Having a baby was one of the best things she found out all day. After her brothers said that she would keep in touch with them, she got back in the boat and got a cab and went home. The sun was setting and Draken had made dinner for them, and she didn't have to make it when she got home. Coming upstairs and watch the sunset when it was finally dark. Hello, I'm home, she said, taking her black coat and hanging it on the hook. Shigo curiously walked to the kitchen as she saw Draken wearing a chef's hat and a white apron. He was smiling and had his eyes closed as he put on a piece of steak on her plate. Shigo laughed quietly as he danced around her room. Shigo, he said, blushing. Hi, she responded, laughing. How are you? Draken asked, coming over and kissing her. Good, how are you? She asked dreamily, looking deep in his eyes. Never better. I have made you dinner since you were probably hungry from your day in town, Draken said, taking the hat and apron and pulling off a chair for her. She thanked him and he pushed her in. Wow, this is nice, Shigo said, surprised. Draken had never really made dinner for her, and she wasn't sure if his cooking was any that good. But tonight she felt so excited that she didn't care. Popping off the cork, he gave Shigo some red wine in a glass, and he did the same for his and sat down across from her. Enjoy, he said, waiting for her wonderful start so he could too. Taking a bite of the steak along with mashed potatoes and green beans, she told him it was wonderful. Did I say that his cooking was wonderful? Shigo thought as she shoved more food into her hungry mouth. Who cares? This stuff rules, she giggled to herself, making sure he didn't notice. Throughout dinner, Shigo told Draken about her day and how she spent it. She also told him about seeing her brothers. But I thought you never really want to spend time with your brothers, he asked, taking a sip of his wine. Yeah, I know. This whole pregnancy thing has gotten good to my head, she laughed, eating some more of her potatoes. Wait, you're still happy about it? You're having a baby, aren't you? Draken asked, looking down at the table, and he stopped eating. Oh, of course I am, Shigo said, smiling. Okay, it just seemed for a minute you weren't happy, Draken said, going back to his meal. Weeks had passed, and Shigo's lower stomach was starting to get bigger and bigger. Things were going well between her and Draken. Things were hard, though, and couldn't go out do much. And even if they did, they weren't careful, and they'd probably bump into Kim Possible, and she and Ron Stoppable and the rest of the world would find out what they got married and started a family. Both of their reputations would never be the same. It wasn't until one afternoon, Shigo was reading, relaxing when she got a phone call. Getting off the couch, she walked over to the phone. Hello? Shigo said in her normal tone. Yes, hello. Is Drew Lipsky here? Said a voice. This was a woman's voice, and she seemed to only be a little. Yes, he is. May I ask who's calling? She said. Curiously, no one ever called them. And if they did, they didn't want Draken by that name. But who could it be? The woman spoke again, and Shigo's eyes went to the size of baseballs because she was so surprised. Oh, nice to meet you. I'll go get him, Shigo said, putting down the phone. She went to walk out of her room, and then she bumped into Draken. Hello, dear, he said, kindly walking past her. Draken, Shigo said. Draken raised his eyebrows to let her know that he was listening. There's someone on the phone for you, she said, smiling. Who is it? Draken asked, confused. Why would anybody be calling for him? You'll see, Shigo said, leaving the room. Okay, this is weird, Draken thought as he picked up the receiver to his ear. Hello, this is Drew Lipsky speaking. How may I help you? He asked, still puzzled. Drew, the woman's voice said. Drew, it's me, Abby. Your mom, she said. Draken dropped his glass in hand and shattered, but he didn't care. He didn't even hear it, because he was in such a good shock. Mom? He asked, sitting down, as if he was going to be sick. Hi, she said in a laughing tone. How are you? She asked politely. Oh, good, Mom. My God, I'm just in so much shock. How did you find me? Draken asked. His mother laughed. Oh, so you don't want to be found now, huh? She asked jokingly. Draken laughed a little before he broke out his fantasy. Well, it's great to hear from you. How did you find my number? I've been looking for you everywhere, Draken said. I know, dear. It's just I've been going to many places. It still haunts me to remember what happened, she said, looking down. Draken looked at the two and rubbed his eyes as if he was tired. Yeah, it's been haunting me too, Draken said sadly. So how has your life been? Draken's mother said, breaking the subject away from being sad and what had happened to them in the past. Good, great actually. How about you? It's hard, but it's been alright. What have you been doing with your life since you've left college and all? Abby said in a very stern voice, as if Draken was in trouble with her. Well, I became a scientist after all, and I found someone and... Oh, you found someone? What is this nice girl you've picked up on the phone? Abby was like a child. Draken laughed nervously and walked into the living room and slugged down on the couch. Yeah, that's Shigo, Mom. She's my wife, Draken said very quickly and breathing heavily. There was a long silence between the two of them, and Draken was blushing horribly. Draken started to get uncomfortable until Abby started to talk again. Well, Drew, wow, that's wonderful, Abby said with joy. When did you meet her? I met her, believe it or not, on the day I quit college, Draken said, smiling, remembering the day. And you two started dating after a while, huh? Abby asked. Not really, she became my partner and... Amy cut him off, and her face went white. She became your partner? She asked, choked. I hope... No, I don't have a bad boy. Drew, you don't mean... No, Draken said, almost jumping out of his skin completely. Good, Amy sighed. Ma, I am not the kind of man who picks up girls and takes them home and doos them, Draken said, rubbing his temples in frustration. I know you're not. Anyway, I was rude and I had cut you off. Is she your partner in what, dear? Shigo is my partner in science. Yents. And she and I work together involving business, Draken said, finishing. Oh, Abby responded like a child. Well, dear, it's wonderful to hear from you, and I was wondering if I can come see you. Well, I guess you could. It would be a pleasure to see you, Mother. Where you are anyway? Draken asked. Oh, just in a cabin in Maine. I'm renting for a month or two. I told you that I'm always finding somewhere new. I can never stay in one place since what have happened, she said firmly. Well, your age, Mom, I have to say I'm impressed, Draken said, chuckling, finishing the conversation. He got her phone number and told her where he and Shigo are living. Abby had told him that she would get on a plane and be coming in 3 days. Hanging up the phone, he went to the living room and stared at Shigo, who was reading a magazine slouching down on the couch next to her. She put it down and looked at him. So? Shigo asked. So what? Draken asked, confused. So how's your mom? I mean, you never talked about before in her life. Is everything all right? Shigo asked. Yeah, that everything is fine. I guess I'm still not surprised. I mean, I haven't spoken to her in I don't know, maybe 8 years or something. 8 years? Yes, Shigo. It's been so long. So that is why she asked to come and visit us. And I told her yes, Draken said, rubbing his hands together. Good, I think it's nice that you two can spend some time to each other. 8 years, damn. That's a long time, Draken, Shigo said, shaking her head. You'd really like rubbing it in, are you? He asked, giving her a dull look. Shigo laughed. Yeah, I'm good about it, she said, coming over and sitting down on his lap. Sitting back down more, Draken had rubbed her back. I love you so much, Shigo whispered, looking deep in the crystal beetle black eyes that were locked onto hers, running her fingers through the jet black, spiky, smooth hair. He had told her that he loved her too. Do you believe in eternal life? Draken asked, rubbing his back and keeping her warm. Well, everyone dies in their life, but I believe in the eternal romance, she said, laughing. I believe that is true too. I will never stop loving you, even if we're torn apart or get a divorce. Somewhere in my heart I will always find a way to forgive you, Draken said, keeping his eyes locked on Shigo's diamond green eyes. Now why would you say that? Say what? He asked. Why would you ever say we would get torn apart or get a divorce? Where do you think of these horrible things? Shigo said, making herself laugh. I'm a poet, thank you, he said jokingly, making her laugh even harder. Yeah, I know. I don't think I would ever known you were really are if I didn't fall in love with you, Draki. I guess you're right. My life has been so torn. You're lucky you have your brothers, he said, smiling, and now holding her in his strong arms. They were always bad when I was a kid, always teasing me that they have better powers than me, but I got them back. They were sorry after I burned them into a chicken, Shigo said, laughing. This made Draken laugh too. He was happy that Shigo had a nice childhood from what he knew. So what about you? What was your life so twisted, and why did the kids that knew you always make fun of you? She asked in a romantic voice that hypnotized him. I just didn't have a good childhood, and I don't want to talk about it right now. I guess now is not the time, he said, shyly, looking down. Baby, when do you ever want to tell me, or if you ever want to tell me anything, I'm here. And don't forget that, Shigo said, lying down on the couch at the time he was lying above her. I know, Draken said, whispered, and he leaned so much down to kiss her. Wrapping her arms and resting them on his shoulder, she pulled him close. God, I love this man. Even though I sometimes treat him like shit, I still love him so much, Shigo thought as she kissed him more. Finally, after a moment of passion, they broke their kiss and looked at each other. Every time I kiss you, it just gets better and better, she said, flirting with him. Draken smiled and blushed. Hey, you want to feel the baby? She asked, happily sitting up as he sat next to her. Yes, I want to feel every day to see our babies coming along, Draken said joyfully, looking down at her tummy, which was growing a bit bigger each week. "Give me your hand," she said, and taking his hand and rubbing it up and down her firm belly. Draken was liking this a lot. He was so excited about becoming a father. He just couldn't wait. Smiling, he looked up at Shigo, who was holding his hand firm over her lower stomach. "Do you feel the baby?" she asked happily. "Yeah," Draken said excitedly. He felt something like a bump or two, and every now and then, but her stomach was still getting bigger, and it has only been a few weeks since they found out they were having children. "Wow," Draken said in an amazed voice. "That was so beautiful," he said, holding both Shigo's hands tightly. "Yeah, it was. I can't believe we made something together, and the way we did it was through love," she said. And when Shigo spoke her voice, it sounded like a song, the kind of song an angel would have sung. "I know life is amazing, and that the circle of life," he said. "That night was wonderful," Draken said dreamily. "I know. Doesn't mean we still can't have more," Shigo said, giving him the look. Draken laughed nervously as Shigo got closer to him. "I'm about to get in the shower, and I'll be down in a little bit, okay?" Shigo said. "Sure, go ahead. I'm going to work on some stuff down in the lab." "Where are the henchmen?" Draken asked. Shigo then just shrugged and walked upstairs. Getting up to leave, and he slugged back down on the sofa and quickly ran his fingers through his hair nervously. Draken had felt that earlier when he just upset Shigo by not telling her about his childhood. She did have the right to know. I mean, she was his wife. In Draken's mind, he didn't want to keep secrets from anyone he loved. "I'll tell her when the time is right," he thought, as he walked down to his lab and did some work. What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video, and I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel, known as Miss Dark Shigo, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said, and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, please stay pretty.